USC football has had an insane season. They're currently 2 wins away from the college football playoff, have a chance at going undefeated, and have a chance at winning a national title in year 1 under Lincoln Riley. The Trojans are one of the most storied programs in all of college football, but the last couple years have been very much up and down for them. The Clay Helton era had its highs and lows. Both Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian had interesting tenures, but now USC fans are happy with where the program's at. They've been insane this year. Caleb Williams is now the frontrunner for the Heisman, and in today's video, I want to talk about how USC turned it around from missing a bowl game last year to being a national title contender. We're going to talk about the rise of the Trojans, where they were a few years ago, what's made this team so good, and my expectations and prediction for the rest of the season and the future. But before we get into it, we're so close to 100k, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, turn on notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now, let's talk about the rise of USC football. We first need to go back in time. In 2001, Pete Carroll would take over for Paul Hackett, and after a 6-6 season, he would get his Trojans to the Las Vegas Bowl. It was a decent start, but I don't think anyone expected what happened next. In 2002, the team went 11-2 and won the Orange Bowl and finished as high as ranked as number 4. This set up unreal expectations for 2003, where they go 12-1 and beat Michigan, and then in 2004, they obviously won the Orange Bowl and beat Oklahoma for the national championship. In 2005, they get right back, but they ended up losing to Texas, and then Carroll would fall off a little bit. His teams went 11-2 in both 2006 and 2007, before they go 12-1 once again in 2008. In 2009, Pete Carroll would go 9-4, before he would leave to take the Seahawks head coaching job. Pete Carroll had built USC into a dynasty, but it didn't come without its cost. The program got in trouble, and there were sanctions, and Lane Kiffin was the guy who was supposed to take over. After his one brilliant year at Tennessee, Kiffin was the hottest young coaching name in the country, and he had his Trojans go 8-5 in 2010. In 2011, Kiffin would get them to a 10-2 record, and they would finish first in the Pac-12 South. In 2012, Kiffin's team fell off as they went 7-6, and then in 2013, the team went 10-4. But things went on before that. Kiffin went 4-7 in his last 11 games, and during their opening game against Washington State, there were actually boos filling the Coliseum and chants to fire Kiffin. Eventually, he was fired, and Ed Orgeron was named the interim head coach, and his team went 6-2. Overall, the Kiffin tenure was widely considered a disappointment, as there was questionable coaching calls, and the sanctions contributed to a missed opportunity for the program. Clay Helton was promoted to head coach for one game in 2013, before Steve Sarkisian would take over. He had rebuilt the Washington program, and he went 9-4 in his first year before they went 8-6 in 2015. Sarkisian had some questionable stuff happen off the field, and that is why he was let go of. Clay Helton was once again named the interim head coach and then made the actual head coach. In his first year in 2016, they started out with 5-star quarterback Max Brown, but then hot young star Sam Darnold would take over and lead them to a Rose Bowl victory. The team would go 11-3 in 2017 before things became extremely disappointing. They went 5-7 in 2018, led by JT Daniels, had a little bit of a resurgence with Keaton Slovis in 2019 as they went 8-5, and then in 2020 they went 5-1 and lost the most important game of the season, and this led to Helton being on thin ice. He was fired just a couple of games into the 2021 season, and Dante Williams was named the interim head coach, and the team would go 4-8, and probably the biggest bright spot was the emergence of true freshman quarterback Jackson Dart. At this point, USC had become a shell of its old self, and many said they needed to make a big hire that could change everything. That is exactly what they did. Lincoln Riley quickly rose up the coaching ranks and eventually was named the head coach at Oklahoma, and he did great in his first few years there. He was a quarterback whisperer and seemed to fit the exact personality that the USC fans wanted, except it was rumored he would go to LSU. He said he wasn't going to LSU and then announced the next day he was headed to USC. He said, quote, "I'm truly excited to come to USC and join the Trojan family as its new head football coach. USC is an unparalleled football tradition with tremendous resources and facilities, and the administration has made a deep commitment to winning. I look forward to honoring that successful tradition and building on it. The pieces are in place for us to build the program back to where it should be, and the fans expect it to be. We will work hard to develop a physical football team that is dominant on both lines of scrimmage and has a dynamic, balanced offense with a stout, aggressive defense." Riley went 55-10 at Oklahoma, won 4 Big 12 titles, and had 3 college football playoff appearances, so this was the exact hire USC fans have been waiting on. Riley's first job when he got to USC was to save the 2022 class. He kept 5-star corner Damani Jackson, brought in big-time running back Raleek Brown, and then kept his big-time safety commitment in Zion Branch. He did a good job of salvaging that class, but where he really did a lot of damage was the transfer portal. Riley brought in 20 total transfers, which included former Biletnikoff winner Jordan Addison, who came over from Pittsburgh, and that was somewhat controversial. Caleb Williams, his big-time 5-star Heisman-worthy quarterback from Oklahoma. Shane Lee, a forgotten player from Alabama who has now taken over the defense. Travis Dye, an all-conference running back from Oregon. Austin Jones, a big-time running back from Stanford. Mario Williams, a young talented receiver from Oklahoma. Terrell Bynum, a young talented receiver from Washington. And Jerry Rice's son from Colorado. There are 20 total transfers, and these guys have made an immediate impact for USC. Jackson Dart unfortunately left for Ole Miss, but Caleb Williams would take over as the quarterback, and so far he has been magnificent. He has thrown for 3,480 yards with 33 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. He's also completing 65% of his passes and has been playing at an elite level over the last few games, and this morning apparently it came out that he is the Heisman frontrunner right now. At running back, they've had a couple of good players, which include both transfers Travis Dye and Austin Jones. Dye had 884 yards and 9 touchdowns before he was lost for the season with an injury. Now, Austin Jones has 455 yards and 5 touchdowns. Former TCU transfer Darwin Barlow has 3 touchdowns, and true freshman Raleek Brown has been getting more carries as of late. In terms of the receivers, it's been an extremely balanced group. Jordan Addison has led the way with 51 catches for 765 yards and 8 touchdowns, and behind him, there's a logjam of about 5 guys. Memphis transfer Taj Washington has taken a major step this year. Mario Williams has produced, Brendan Rice has produced, and former big-time recruit Kyle Ford has produced. Michael Jackson III also has 3 touchdowns, and somehow one of their best receivers in Gary Bryant Jr. has barely played, as he apparently decided to opt out or something. Everyone knew the offense was going to be good, as Riley always did a good job in that department, but defense was where people were concerned. As I said, Shane Lee was a former Alabama afterthought, but so far in the year, he leads the team at 65 tackles. Transfer Eric Gentry at linebacker has been huge, and Max Williams has been playing at an elite level as a defensive back. Except, the best player on this entire defense has been Tuli Tolopolotu. The former 3-star recruit has 11.5 sacks on the season and has also forced 2 fumbles. He's rising into the first round of the draft and could be an All-American if he continues this level of play. So now I've given you the stats, I've told you about the coach, I've talked to you about the defense, but ultimately how has this team done this year? Well, in week 1 they were matched up with Rice, where that game was not at all difficult. They won 66-14, and if they lost that, they would have been in big trouble. In week 2, they went on the road to Stanford, and while they did get off to a somewhat slow start, they eventually won 41-28, and it was an easy win. In week 3, they came home and took care of Fresno State before they arguably had their 3rd most difficult game of the season to this point against Oregon State. The Beavers are now ranked, but at the time, this was going to be the biggest game in Oregon State football history in a long time. This game went back and forth, and neither team could really get going, and ultimately, USC made a play at the end and won 17-14 to get to 4-0. After that, they came home and played Arizona State, in which they won 42-25, and then they had a tricky home game against Washington State. This game was ultimately a little bit closer than the experts thought, but they ended up winning 30-14, and were now 6-0 with a 4-0 mark in the Pac-12. After that, they'd have to go on the road to play against number 20 Utah, and everyone knew how difficult of a game this would be. Caleb Williams ended up having his best game of the year to that point, but they lost 43-42 as Utah scored late, went for 2, and put a loss in the column for the Trojans. USC would need to bounce back in a big way if they wanted any chance at the college football playoff, and that is exactly what they have done. While they did end up struggling on the road against Arizona, they won that game, and Williams had over 400 yards in that one. They came home and took care of Cal, and I don't know why that game was close, and then 2 weeks ago, they killed Colorado 55-17. Going into their rivalry matchup with UCLA, the team was 9-1 with a 7-1 mark in the conference, and this was going to be the most highly anticipated USC-UCLA game in a long time. The Trojans ended up winning 48-45, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a late interception, which sealed the win for the Trojans. Now, it looks like the Trojans have a legitimate chance at going to the college football playoff, and with Tennessee losing, that only helps them. The Trojans are 10-1 with an 8-1 mark in the Pac-12, but they have a sneaky difficult game coming up against number 18 Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame almost lost to Cal and did lose to Marshall early on in the season, but they have since gotten a lot better and are currently surging as they're ranked number 18 in the country. While I ultimately think USC will win this game by a touchdown or 2, this could be an instant classic. Notre Dame has a chance to pull off an upset, and USC can get one step closer to making the college football playoff. The Trojans have been led by a star quarterback, a balanced running game, a balanced receiving game, a defense that has done just enough, they have an elite pass rusher, and it seems they're all buying into the culture there. USC has a tremendous 2023 recruiting class. Things look to be on the up for them. They could be in the college football playoff, and that would have been unthinkable a year ago as the team went through a coaching change and had a losing season. But what do you guys think? If you're a USC fan, what are your expectations for the rest of the year, and what are your thoughts on this weekend's game? What are your expectations for the future, and what team, player, topic, or situation can I cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.